Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about the NFL Scouting Combine. We're going to be talking about the top IDP prospects and whether we thought they were winners or losers.
Hike!
So, Joe, let's first talk about probably the guy who I believe most likely will be the first defensive player drafted as a result of this combine performance. It only helped his stock, and that's defensive end Dallas Turner. Joe, he's a guy that you were not as fond of in our earlier video when we talked about rankings. However, he measured at around 6'2", 247, which is definitely on the smaller side, but had an elite 40-yard dash time of 4.46 with a possible 10-yard split time of 1.54. Guy's definitely athletic. That was his calling card. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised the way he tested, at the combine. Everyone just raves about his athleticism, and he really put it on a showcase at the combine. Honestly, if he didn't do that, I would have been more surprised. Would have liked to seen him do some of the other drills as far as the agility stuff and whatnot, but I guess we'll see that on his pro day. But from what he did show at the combine, obviously he showed what his athletic freak he is. But the other drills shows how it translates to the NFL field. 40 times and other things shows your athleticism, but really doesn't show off how it's going to translate to the NFL.
Do you feel like he'll be the first defensive player taken?
Yes, I do. I think especially the way he just ran and where his RAS score is here. I think people are in the NFL are just going to go nuts over his athleticism and want to get their hands on him. So, I think most popular landing spot is potentially, the Falcons at 8 at this point. But I guess that's if the Falcons get a quarterback in free agency or whatever. But I do think he'll be the first defensive player off the board.
Yeah, what you reference RAS, the relative athletic score, from Math Bomb over on Twitter is a great follow. And yeah, I mean, when you look at the composite ranking, I mean, he did really, really well. I personally think he's kind of fool's gold. I think you agree with me unless you've changed your mind.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I just didn't, he had a big year his freshman year. I get he did have somewhat of a rebound, his senior year. But I just am worried he's, see another Jadeveon Clowney type where he's just not going to give that effort all the time. And you just kind of get that in spurts, but he's a super athletic, twitchy guy that everyone in the NFL is going to rave over and give them a chance.
So let's talk about another edge rusher who happens to be my favorite, and he was yours unless things have changed. That was Jared Verse, defense in Florida State. Ended up being 6'3", 254, so a little bit on the lighter side, but did very well in his 40-yard dash time with a 4.58 with a 10-yard split of 1.6. Overall, very athletic. What were your thoughts on him? You feel like he was a winner as a result of today, or do you feel like he stayed the same? Definitely don't think he's a loser.
Yeah, no, I think he was a winner. I think he showed enough. Honestly, I would have liked to have seen him do a little better in that towel drill as far as his bend and stuff. That was the only real knock of the drill, though. I mean, for the most part, he did pretty good. But at the same point, he's not like that bendy type of guy. So that drill's not set up for him. I mean, he's power. He's big. He's strong. He's physical. And yeah, I mean, I really like Jared Verse. Coming out as a defensive end edge rusher here.
Well, it was interesting, even the combine coverage, you saw him being compared to Will Anderson, which
Correct,
if he is, I mean, that's a fantastic. I mean, you'd be very happy if he performs to the caliber of Will Anderson. I like Verse better. And although Turner had maybe the better day, so to speak, I still like Verse. And I still think he's a winner because I don't think he faltered at all.
Correct. Yeah, he didn't falter. I mean, he had a good 40 time. And that's a lot of people put a lot of stock in that. Yeah, I didn't think he did anything to hurt his draft stock. I agree with you.
Let's talk about another guy who I know you were raving about as a result of his combine, which was defensive tackle Byron Muphy out of Texas. He's on the smaller end, but that hasn't bothered a lot of previous defensive tackles like Elijah Cantey and Aaron Donald. This guy's 6 foot, basically, 297 pounds, but he had a 40-yard dash time of 4.87, as well as a 10-yard split time of 1.69. And that split time is really important. And, these guys, it's more their acceleration than their burst off the line. But, boy, he looked good on those drills, Joe. I know you're pretty excited about him.
Yeah. I mean, of the defensive tackles that I watched, him in that 4-back drill, I mean, just how light he is on his feet and his movement. I mean, you nailed it. They, during the broadcast, they showed Aaron Donald and how he killed that 4-back drill, and very similar as far as the footwork goes. And I get that this guy's smaller, but I just think he's his pass rush ability out of the D tackle position is going to be bar none, and really was impressed by him.
And that's what we're looking for in an IDP league. Can you get a guy who's going to get a sack? And that's the thing. He will be. Conversely, I know a lot of people, I don't know where you stand on T'Vondre Sweat, his counterpart. Kind of a mixed report with him. I would say I lean more towards he's a loser, but really in the fact that he just doesn't fit the IDP world. An individual defensive player, you're going to want a guy who's going to get you sacks. This guy is going to play all 3 downs. He's a nose tackle, and he's a big man. But he didn't perform like a Jordan Davis did a number of years ago that people were oohing and eyeing for what he did. And obviously Davis is really good, but you see that even Davis himself, it hasn't translated in the stat box, in the box score, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know what people are expecting out of T'Vondre Sweat. I mean, the combine is not meant for him. Like, he's not the most athletic guy. He's not going to blow you away with that. I mean, this guy's just massive. And I was actually impressed by his 40 time. I thought that was pretty good. I get why people are calling him a loser, and it just, didn't. I don't know if he did all the agility drills, but if he did, he just wasn't that impressive. But it's like, what do you expect? I mean, I don't expect a 366-pound man to be agile and look good in doing those drills.
No.
But honestly, how fast he did on up running the 40, that was pretty impressive for me.
Well, I mean, if you look at his relative athletic score, it actually is pretty low compared to his size and weight. Low. I mean, it actually wasn't very good. But he'll find a role in the NFL. He's not a guy that I would be looking to add on your roster.
No, because I mean, he's gonna, like you said. I mean, he's a nose tackle. He's a run stuffer. He commands a double team, which teams are gonna like, and he's probably just gonna play first and second down. And then he's a guy that comes off the field, on an obvious passing down.
Now, a guy that I know you loved in the defensive tackle group is Braden Fiske. He was definitely a winner, a guy we haven't talked about before. Do you think this guy is a potential first-round pick? I mean, he was 6'3", 292, so he's a little bit on the lighter side. But, boy, I mean, his 40-yard dash time was a 4.78, 10-yard split of 1.68. Guy was overall very athletic, and he looked great in the drills.
Yeah, not only did he look great in the drills of the combine, but this guy dominated the Senior Bowl as well with the practice. He even had to switch teams last minute in the Senior Bowl and still did pretty well. So I was impressed with him there. But you said it. I mean, his get off, and if you watch the tape, it just his pass rush ability. This is another guy like Byron Muphy. I mean, you're going to want him in IDP leagues because he's going to get you those sack numbers, tackles for loss, and that's going to be big from the defensive tackle.
Yeah, for me, he's definitely a riser, no question about it, and he's definitely a winner. I think I definitely have Byron Muphy ahead of him, and I like Johnny Newton or Jerzon Newton. But he obviously didn't show up.
We didn't get to see him.
But he definitely was a winner today. How about another guy on the defensive line? The guy I know you really like, Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. He was 6'4", 259 pounds, a little bit on the lighter side. Ended up with a 4.64 40-yard dash time, which is pretty good, with a 1.62 10-yard split. What are your thoughts there for Latu? I'd say he did pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he did anything like I was blown away with or super impressed by, but the guy, I mean, if you just watch his team, he's just such a smooth player and just does everything pretty well. So while I wasn't blown away, I also wasn't left to deterred by anything he did or think he did a poor performance. He's just pretty natural in his athleticism and his movements, and he's just all around pretty smooth player.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to him, it's going to be the medical. But we're not going to see the medical. The teams are seeing the medical. And if we hear anything about it, it's going to be through the media, with Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter reporting that his medical was not good and he's dropping out of the first round. But we won't know that till much later. But as far as the actual what he did on the field, he's got. You heard even J.O.J. Ryan talk about on the broadcast. He's got the pass rush moves.
Yep. He definitely does, and it's the thing. Like, I've never questioned him as a player or anything. You mentioned it's just been the medicals and just how bizarre. I mean, the fact that one school can medical retire you with that neck injury and another set of collegiate doctors, clears you play. He had really good numbers this past year with UCLA, and then he looks good in the combine. I'm curious to watch him where he goes and how NFL teams feel about that neck injury.
So for me, I would say my biggest winner, and I don't know how you feel about this, I think you're going to agree, but I think possibly the biggest winner of this whole thing was linebacker Payton Wilson. Payton Wilson, to me, when you look at the drills, this guy was absolutely phenomenal. I think what he was able to do, he just was so smooth. I felt like he would take a Jack Campbell rise. We talked about how well Jack Campbell did in the combine. And when he did, obviously he got into the first round. I believe Payton Wilson is the only linebacker in this class that maybe Edgerrin Cooper. We haven't talked about him yet, but I think Payton Wilson's a lock for the first round. He had a 40-yard dash time of 4.43, which I believe led the pack, no pun intended, because he played for the Wolfpack. For linebackers, had a 1.54 10-yard split, 6'3", 233, which is on the lighter side. But, I mean, this guy's just athletic, Joe. What did you think? I'm super impressed by him.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, he blew everybody away with that 40 time. I don't know how many people were expecting that. I mean, Twitter was going nuts when that guy hit that 40 time at the linebacker position. But, yeah, I agree. I mean, he was ultra impressive. As far as the drills, everything he did was, ultra smooth. And I definitely could see that Jack Campbell rises, you were saying.
He's a guy who I felt before when we did our pre-draft rankings, or, a few weeks back, we talked about it before all this stuff happened. I thought he could be a guy who'd be a IDP darling. And I think he's now going to become one. Like I said, I think he's going to be drafted in the first round. This guy's a ball player. And he's won awards too in college football. I believe he was considered the best defensive player in college football this past year. So, he's a real gamer, and I think this is going to do wonders for his draft stock.
Yeah, it really will, and especially with that 40 time and his potential ability to cover tight ends or cover running backs out of the backfield. I think that speed that he showed, and I know he was pretty good in coverage as well in college. So that's really going to translate well for him too.
So we talked about Payton Wilson. Let's talk about Edgerrin Cooper. He was listed as 6'2", 230, with a 40-yard dash time of 4.51, a 10-yard split of 1.54. Overall, pretty athletic. Not as athletic in my view as Payton Wilson. And I think I could be wrong, and you correct me, but I thought he was going to be a lot taller. I thought he was supposed to be like 6'4" from what I saw. Maybe they listed him in college. I think it was good. I'm not overly impressed. I think he's a guy who kind of scares me, to be honest with you, because in my view, I know he's had the sacks, but he's a smaller guy. He's one of those combo guys who he's going to be an off the ball linebacker. He's not going to be an edge rusher. I don't know. He's not Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons is a whole different category. But I'm just saying sometimes players like that they just can't find a role.
Yeah, I think it could be troubling as well. Especially you mentioned the weight. When you kind of saw that issue with some of the guys that the Dallas Cowboys had at linebacker, like a Marquise Bell, that they were rolling out their lighter guys and just get lost and plowed over in the run game in the NFL, and so that potentially is a concern. But I mean, like you said, he ran a good 40 time. I think overall he's a pretty athletic guy. Be interesting to see where he ends up.
I mean, athleticism is no question, but 230 is light.
That is light. I mean, you would really like to see that weight heavier, especially if you're gonna come down and, stuff in the run
But
game.
Payton Wilson is 233. So I mean, we're putting our foot in our mouth, because if we say it, that's a problem. But I guess to me, Payton Wilson's when you watch him on tape, I mean, he's a pursuer. I mean, I don't know. I just think they play the game differently.
Yeah, I think that is fair. I mean, Wilson his aggressiveness and everything does come up, and maybe that's what alludes you to maybe he plays bigger than a guy like Edgerrin Cooper, and that could just be a mind thing.
So let's talk about some losers in my mind, Joe. I'm going to talk about first Bralen Trice. I know you're a big fan of this guy. Measured at 6'3", 245. He did okay in the 40-yard dash. It was a 4.72. His 10-yard split wasn't as good. It was a 1.65. But when you watched him in the drills, I know, Daniel Jeremiah and team kind of felt like maybe he was injured or whatever, but this guy was falling over. He did not look smooth. And compared to his counterparts, to me, it was glaring that he was definitely a step below guys like Verse, Turner, Latu, right? He's vying for one of those top jobs, that's those top tier. And he felt like he was. I don't think he showed it. I think he's definitely a loser after the combine.
Yeah, I just think he's another guy that, the combine doesn't necessarily fit him. I mean, he's not as athletic as those other guys. But I just think that he's more just like a typical like tough football player, and he's got some edge moves, but he's not going to kill you with a great bend or, kill you with the athleticism. So yeah, I could see you being disappointed, but I mean, I just think, maybe at the pro day, or I think what he actually puts on the field and just watches tape and believe that more than what you saw on the combine.
Yeah, another loser for me is going to be safety Kamren Kinchens, a guy in my view who was really competing with Tyler Nubin as the top safety prospect in this class. Now, we didn't see Tyler Nubin run the 40-yard dash time, but we did see Nubin run the positional drills. And in my view, Nubin and Payton Wilson and probably Byron Muphy, based on different positions, but especially Nubin and Wilson, these guys were smooth. I mean, we're talking crisp in all these drills. I mean, this is textbook of what they're trying to do. I was so impressed. You hear maybe Nubin isn't as athletic, but even Daniel Jeremiah talked about, the safety position is very instinctual, and he's very instinctual. He's a very smart safety. So I just think for me, why I think that Kinchens is a loser is because I think Nubin, even without running the 40-yard dash time, separated himself clearly as the guy. I think Kinchens was in the conversation, and I just don't think Kinchens looked as good. He looked a little more stiff in my view. He's 5'11", 203, 40-yard dash time of 4.65, which is pretty poor, which is interesting because the guy is very explosive. I mean, maybe he's one of those that he plays faster on the field. He looks like he plays faster. He just doesn't test as well. But this whole thing about this guy was that he was going to be, in my view, from my understanding, he was going to be very athletic. I think he disappointed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I definitely agree with you the fact that Tyler Nubin definitely stood out amongst the other defensive backs that he was going up against. Just like you said, I mean, the drills, I mean, he was really just mastering those and showing these other guys how it's really done. But yeah, Kinchens, I think we were both interested in him, in the preview. But yeah, ultimately disappointing with his numbers and the turnout here at the combine. I think, one of the things you like about Kinchens is just he plays it pretty physical if you watch the tape. So I like that about him. And maybe just as a guy, again, like you said, maybe he's got better game speed and he's just more of a gamer and he's just not going to test as well at something like the combine.
Joe, before we round out the show, I know people probably don't have as much interest in corners, but we're going to show some love. Who was your favorite guy as far as the group that tested?
Yeah, my favorite guy as far as the cornerback position goes, it's a lot of people have talked about, and I think it was Terrion Arnold. I really liked what he did just from the drill perspective, especially, he's pretty good in the one where you just run a straight line, go pretty fast, catch the ball. Everything turned out pretty clean. He turned up field. And even in the other drills, felt like transitioning, and he's good with his hip flexibility and the way he flips his hips and can go backwards. People have been saying that he's been rising up the draft boards and is the best corner, and I really thought from the combine performance that he really was today.
Yeah, I know Daniel Jeremiah, I think, has him, I think he's the 8th best player or something like that. I think he's in his top 10. I wasn't as impressed as you were with him, but he did okay. And, the comp that they made for him was Jalen Johnson. I think this corner class, in my opinion, and maybe you disagree with me on here, but I think it's a little overrated, the cornerback class in this group. I almost think it seems like for whatever reason, corners get inflated every draft season. It's like there's at least 4 or 5 or 6 of them that go in the first round, but then most of them I feel like don't ever pan out.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of not wrong on that. I mean, Devin Witherspoon obviously last year hit. I felt like Joey Porter Jr. was pretty disappointing with Pittsburgh, though.
Well, he was a second-round pick, but...
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of people thought he could be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, people thought he was a first-round pedigree, but, I mean, you had other guys in there. I mean, you had, Deonte Banks, went in the first round. He did okay. I'm trying to think what other corners off the top of my head went in the first round.
But I do agree with you. I do think potentially this class is getting a little overrated. Like a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry, everybody was going nuts for. I think things are kind of cooling on him. I mean, would have liked to seen him test. Unfortunately, he had that toe fracture there that didn't allow him to do the drills today. Some of the other guys could be overblown, but I just think that corner has just become such a need because we're getting into that passing league that everyone's just overemphasizing the corners, where I think teams are kind of showing, though. I mean, if you look at teams like the San Francisco 49ers this year, yeah, they had Charvarius Ward, but they didn't have the best secondary, still made it to the Super Bowl, but they invested heavily on the defensive line. I think if you invest in your defensive line and get to the quarterback, your back end can be a little subpar.
Yeah, I mean, you had Emmanuel Forbes, who ironically I thought would be pretty good, but he was actually not good at all, which is shocking. And then you had Christian Gonzalez, who was an athletic freak, which you and I both like, but, can he even stay healthy? I mean, who even knows? Yeah,
that's the unfortunate part because, I mean, at least for our fantasy league, he was doing pretty well when he did play, but unfortunate with the injury there.
Yeah, so you talked about your favorite corner. My favorite corner was Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. I'm a little nervous as far as Toledo is not, you're not facing the the toughest competition compared to Alabama, but this guy's got great ball skills. 6 foot, 195. Had a 4.33 40-yard dash. I do think that sometimes can be overrated when it comes to corners. They're like, oh, speed, but I think I'd rather have a corner who's maybe a little bit slower but has better reaction time. Which you could say Arnold is very good at that. But yeah, I think Mitchell. I think that what he did in the drills I thought was impressive to me. I thought he did like a natural ball hawk. So I think you couldn't go wrong. I think both were good. I just lean towards Mitchell.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think both players are good. I like Arnold, and it's, more than anything, I would like, if you're going to play man-to-man, I'd like a physical corner. I don't care how fast you run in the 40, because if you can get your hands on guys and disrupt the timing of these routes, to me, that's more important. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have that catch-up speed if you need it, but hopefully you're not letting people by you where you need to use that catch-up speed. And I think, too, as far as, Mike Sainristil, if that guy was just a little taller, I think people would be really talking about him. Converted wide receiver. Of course, he did well in the drills and showed off his hands, but he's just on the short end, and he really fits in the nickel corner build. But if he was taller, people would really be talking about him more as, a true outside corner.
Oh boy, you had to fit in your Michigan guy, Joe.
Well, if we're gonna talk corners, man, I mean, he had a good day.
Yeah, Joe, you're a Michigan guy. I know. But I mean, he's a good player. I don't disagree. I mean, he's 5'9", 182. Had a 40-yard dash time of 4.47, shuttle time of 9.41. Some players don't even do that. Had a really good vertical and broad. He's going to be a nickel in the
right.
NFL.
That's what I'm saying. It just, I mean, if the guy was a little taller, I think people would be talking him up more, being an outside guy. But yeah, at his height and everything, he's going to be a nickel.
But he could be one of the best nickels, though, in the league in a few years, though. So, I mean, and in the IDP, when we talked about it even recently, guys like Terrion Johnson, even Kenny Moore, guys who have done that, who, that can be relevant.
Yeah. Well, like we say, I mean, guy that plays closer to the ball should get more points for you.
Absolutely. So those were some top IDP prospects that were at the NFL Scouting Combine. Joe and I talked about our winners and losers and what we thought of those guys. In our next episode, we're going to be doing the same thing, except for we're going to be talking about the offense and not the defense. If you're new to the channel, we would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, that notification bell. We're close to 500 subscribers. We want to get there. That'd be a great goal for us to reach. So if you could help us get there, we would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.